Okay, this is lesson number 6. We're in for a little review here for a reason. I'm speaking to a lot of guys at comic book conventions. We go over the whole thing about tracing photographs. Everybody rejects the concept of tracing photographs, and then finally they see the rationale and the realization of why we trace photographs and how we learn from tracing photographs and how we use tracing photographs. But of course, the problem is that people see examples of perhaps badly traced photographs, where they think that if you trace a photograph, it's somehow going to be boring and whatever it's going to be. It really has to do with your photograph. If your photograph is boring, your picture is going to be boring. If you want to learn all the best artists of the last 100 years, trace photographs for their finished work. So the question is not did they, because they did. The question is, how do you make sure you don't avoid the pitfalls of when you're tracing photographs, it doesn't look like you traced a photograph? Because that's not what you want. You want it to look like you did a drawing. Now, people will complain about people that they've seen tracing photographs. There's a good friend of mine, really terrific artist, and he does trace photographs, and everybody knows it. The problem is, perhaps, and I would suggest this, that he gets fashion photographs, and sometimes he'll do the fashion photographs, and you're looking for a regular person, and maybe you're not happy with the fashion photograph, and maybe he needs to take photographs of some real people or candid shots or whatever. There's an advance. In other words, if you're going to take photographs for the work that you do, you really have to become a director. You have to direct the people that you're going to take the photographs of so that they go into the poses that you want to get. Okay, that's one of the pitfalls. Another pitfall is, I don't know, there's some people when I talk to them, it's like, I don't know, if I take photographs, the thing will steal my soul or something. They're going to be diminished by tracing photographs. It's not going to steal you, unless you think you're stupid. And I can understand that. You might think that you're a dummy and that the picture that you're tracing is going to steal your soul. If you feel that, definitely don't do it, because your soul is worth keeping. So, keep your soul and go and do what you want. But it's not going to steal your soul. It has to do with being a tool, just like a pencil. A photograph is a tool. Tracing a photograph is a tool. All the best artists have done it. So that you can see what I'm talking about, I'm going to trace a photograph the way a person who just traces a photograph would trace a photograph. And then we're going to trace the photograph the way an artist would trace a photograph, by absorbing material out of the photograph so they can use it in what they're trying to do. And then I'm going to show you what you do to take that information you're going to get off a photograph, and we're going to turn it into a comic book drawing. Okay, so we're going to take 3 steps: just tracing a photograph to look like a piece of art, tracing a photograph to look like a comic book piece of art. So you're going to switch around here, we're going to pull the camera around, and we're going to watch me work at my light box. So we have a photograph here of Ted Danson. Now, you recognize Ted Danson from all kinds of movies and film. This is a young Ted Danson because I want to use a younger character. So we have a young Ted Danson. I'm going to put my light box on for tracing. I'm going to put my paper over Ted. I'm going to tape him down. I'm going to turn my overhead light off. You can see this a little bit better. So now we have Ted Danson. Now this is how some people interpret what tracing a photograph is. Okay. Believe me, I've seen this a million times. This is what Now, some of you are already seeing what the problem is. That I'm just tracing a photograph. Okay, here's and here. might even have seen this sort of thing. I would have to say that this doesn't do a service to Ted Danson, and it doesn't do a service to you. That's pretty much what you see in a photograph, right? So, there's our tracing of Ted Danson. This is done typically all the time. This is how a photograph steals your soul. We don't want our soul stolen. So we're going to interpret this as an artist. Okay? Remove this, over here. Now before we do this, we're going to look at our photograph. Okay, there's Ted Danson. Now we're going to notice some things. We're going to notice that his eyebrow is being hit by the light. Okay, so it's lightened. So we know that his eyebrow is really up there, and that this is highlights on his eyebrow, whereas the highlights are not hitting his eyebrow here. We're going to see that this is the bridge of his nose, and this is the semi-shadow on his nose, and this is how his nose is structured. So we're going to look at this, and we're going to study this photograph. We're going to see that his mouth is shaped a certain way, and there's a lip, and then there's the outer lip. Okay, we're going to look at this, and as we're looking at this, we're going to see things like that cleft chin there. Okay, then we can put this back over here. Now we've seen these things as an artist. We haven't taken much time, but essentially we've seen them as an artist. Okay, now we're going to look a little closer. I'm going to start with this eyeball, because I like it, right here. Now, because I know, and I've studied eyeballs, I know that the black of the eye is going to be somewhere around there, and there's going to be a highlight here, so I'm going to do that. Then I know his eyelashes are here, and I can see this eyelid, and I can see this eye. Now, it would be far better for me to have a picture of Ted Danson, so guess what? I'm going to put a picture of Ted Danson over here. And now I have something to refer to, okay? Picture of Ted Danson right there. I managed to get that pretty good. I'm going to give that some shadowing. Now I'm looking at his eyebrow here, and a nice prominent eyebrow, only it's a little light, so we have to kind of find it. Yeah, find it in here. So we're going to take it and we're going to find this eyebrow. And we're going to fill that in. And we're going to see this edge here, right there. You can see that. That's a little bit in shadow. And we're going to go under his eye a little bit here, and under the eye here a little bit here, give it a little bit of a shadow. Now we remember, we observe this eyebrow here, and we saw it thicken and pick up a highlight. So we can now take this eyebrow and then we can darken it a little bit, because it's our choice to darken that eyebrow. Okay, now we're going to take this shadow in here and interpret that shadow in pencil. Okay, and we're going to bring this eye up here, right there. Now we're sort of getting the eyes, and then we see that there's his eyebrow continues a little bit over there. We're going to interpret that over there. Now we're going to do this highlight edge, but we're just going to lightly do it. Now we're pulling this highlight out just very lightly. We don't have to do it boldly. And then we have this shadow area, which has a dimensionality to it, so we can interpret it in texture lines like this. Now you see, we've kind of missed over here, and a little heavy over here. You can see it out of the corner of your eye. So you can see the mistakes that you might have made along the way. Now, you got this tip of the nose. This is the nostril. This is the outside of the nostril. Now we're trying to see exactly what this is. So we see this. A little bit of shadowing. Nostril. Okay. Now, this is I don't know what this is called, so I will just leave it up to you to write a letter and tell me what it's called. If it's actually called anything. Okay. Now I see this eye has to be shifted over to the left a little bit so you can look in the same direction with both eyes, which is in that direction. Now we're going to try to find how we can utilize the lips with a little bit of shadowing. Let me see, the crack in the lips goes right about there, right there. We want his lips to be a little bit dark because they're guys, you know, and we want a sense of manliness. Huh? And then this, which is the lip, which we saw, and then the outer edge of the lip like that. Now, I'm not necessarily looking for a likeness, but the likeness should be there, should start appearing. Now here is the outer side of his face, and we have a nice black silhouette to interpret that. And his forehead. And his forehead goes into his hair, of course, and then the hair goes over it, or to put it another way, the hair comes out of the head, which is one of the mistakes that lots of people make, and they somehow magically don't recognize that hair comes out of a head. So they just put it on the top of their head like a baseball cap or a cap of some sort, but that's not how it works. The way it works is hair has to come out of the head. So you have to know where the hair goes into the head, and then you have the hair come out of the head. So we see this hair is coming out of his head under here, okay, and coming out and then going backward on here. I'm not going to fill in all of this, but I'm going to give you a sense of it. And we don't need to do much more because this is going to be filled in black if we were going to do it as a finished drawing. So all of this essentially will be black. Now we see Ted Danson's cheekbone, nice and dramatic. So we're going to utilize it in our drawing, make our shadow, texture lines, cheekbone right here, from what you've learned before, right? We've talked about this. Okay. Okay. Now, is it stealing my soul yet? I don't think so. I think this photograph is helping my soul, if anything. Okay. Ear, remember the ear? We've talked about ears before. This is the lobe. This is that little shield that blocks the wind from going into your ear, stops you from having earaches. This is the cartilage. We've spoken about cartilage before. And this is how the ear goes around. You almost don't even have to look at the ear to know this once you start learning about noses and ears and all the rest of that, because this stuff will come naturally because you've learned from photographs. Okay. Now, by doing his shirt in such a way that you're interpreting in line, in pencil, what you're seeing as a photograph, things are now looking natural. They're looking like a drawing, but at the same time, they're looking like a person, not a tracing. So in a minute we're going to look at this together. Okay. Okay, I think we've taken it far enough. There we go. Okay, now we're going to look at these two things together. Okay, here is your tracing, but here is your interpretation as an artist, pulling the stuff out of the photograph. This is how you trace a photograph. You don't trace a photograph by just drawing lines. You trace a photograph by interpreting what you see there in your own way. Now we're going to go one step further, because you guys are interested in comic books, right? So we'll do this. Now we're going to interpret this the way a comic book artist might interpret it. Okay? Same idea. We're not doing anything different than this except our method of interpretation. Okay? Keeping my lines a little cleaner. Because they have to be inked at some point. You like this forehead. Like the eyebrow. Put the eye there. There. Once again, we're going to find that eyeball. The eyebrow. He's going to be a little bit more dramatic. I'm going to just tighten his eyelid a little bit there. I'm going to go down here and do the mouth. We're kind of turning Ted Danson into a kind of a comic book character. Hero of the comic books. Let me see. That's right, because he's got that kind of chin, you know, or had that kind of chin, and now he's getting older and not as dramatic, perhaps, as he was when he was younger. So now, I'm going to do his nice dramatic chin. Now, he doesn't need too much drama to add to this chin, so he might just get a little bit more drama to that chin. Now, since we're saying we're going to make a comic book character out of him, why don't we make a comic book character out of him, okay? We can, we'll put a mask on him. Okay, perhaps like that. Okay, and let's say we're going to go put a mask around his eyes. And we'll put a mask around his eye. is dark. Okay. I don't think we want to put ears in him. We'll just kind of cover up his ears and make his neck. And let me see. Make him as dramatic as we can. In fact, since we've taken off his ears, let's put some ears up here. Like that. Since he's got so much hair back there, we don't have to use all that hair. We can just cover up the hair. Make his neck a little lighter. I'm going to put a cape on him. Let's put a cape on him. That's looking pretty good. We're flattening his hair down. Kind of like that. Remember this? Yes, we want to do that in there. Let me see. I think we have Ted Danson as Batman here. All right. I think that's what we have here. So, let's look at this. Started with a photograph. Okay. We did a tracing of a photograph, which is a total failure. Total failure. We don't want to see this. We don't want people to see this because all it is a mechanical tracing of a photograph. Anybody could do that. 5-year-old child could do that. So we're doing an interpretation of the photograph, okay, as a drawing. So now no longer does it look like a photograph, even though it looks like it was taken from a photograph. It looks like a drawing, okay? But it looks like a drawing slightly for an illustration. Now we've taken it a little bit further. We've taken it to a comic book drawing. And we've reinterpreted, without doing very, very much, to Ted Danson as a young man, as if he were playing Batman in a movie or in a comic book. There's Ted Danson. This is what using photographs means. This is how you use photographs. No more stealing your soul, no more getting crazy, but using this as a tool. Here you go. Okay, remember, if you have any questions, just send in your questions. I'll be glad to answer them as we go along. Next we do action poses.